Mark Twain said, one must travel to learn. And according to Hans Christian Andersen, to travel is to live. Travel is important because travel is learning. Hello everyone and welcome to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. Our guests today are passionate and intrepid travelers. They even have their own travel blog. It's a pleasure to be speaking with Flexcia D'Souza and Kevin Pinto. Hello and thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you for
having us.
Let us start with the first question, which I'm sure our viewers also would like to know. How did the travel bug and when and how did the travel bug bite you? Flexia, let's start with you.
Cool. I think for me it was when I moved out of Goa for my studies, and I was in fact looking for colleges to sort of apply to, and back in the time, this was like almost a decade back, internet wasn't really big as much as it is now, right? So even for your entrance test or whatever, you really had to travel and do it. So I started like going to the cities, and I was like, okay, I'm spending so much time here and I'm waiting for the result, for the next round of entrance. So what do I do during all these days? So why don't I explore the place, And that's how it started. And after that, when I actually moved out of Goa, anytime there would be like a holiday or a vacation, I would come to Goa maybe once a month, like I would come home. But if I had like maybe just a weekend off, I was like, I don't think I should go back home.
It does make sense.
Yes, why don't I just travel to a place? And I was in Mangalore, which is like the hub of travel in the south, right? So you can go to so many places from Mangalore because it's quite central to, going to Kerala or most part of Karnataka. So I started exploring a lot of offbeat places that time, because on a student budget, you can't really afford touristy places. So I mean, that is how for me the whole offbeat travel path started. I would do like a few freelance gigs here and there. I would like do events. I was also a model, so I would like save up money doing different things, and I would travel, and I traveled like quite a bit of Kerala and Karnataka during that point. And I would also like go to cities or like places a little far, but this was more convenient because it was just weekend travel. And this was way before like Instagram was a thing, or I didn't even know there's something called travel blogging. Fashion blogging was just starting at that point, and that was more because of the fashion weeks and Bollywood and like a lot of that. But travel blogging is a thing. I mean, I didn't know it existed, or I could make like a career in something like this. So it was mostly just going around, being out there, exploring, sometimes solo, sometimes with a bunch of friends. And I realized that I really enjoy planning those trips. So even if like my friends are like, "Arey, it's holiday, let's go somewhere," I would take it upon myself to like plan the whole trip, curate an itinerary, do the bookings, everything. I mean, of course, now it's much simpler because you have apps on the phone.
Right.
Internet is so much more accessible. But even that time, I mean, internet existed. So, you just had to find like a proper legit website to do your bookings, and then you were good to go. But back in the time, I've also had like instances where I have gone to places without any bookings, gone there, found a place to stayed, then realized, oh, I like the place, I think I should extend my stay a little bit. And it started that way. My first trip ever was Gokarna, which was not like a city visit, it was more like a travel trip. And Gokarna, because I mean, when you are away from home, you're homesick a little bit. But I mean, you can't go home, but Gokarna was like more convenient. So I just go there without any bookings, and it was the beach town, and it was very much like how Arambol used to be back in the time.
Right.
So I just go there with a friend of mine. Even she was from Goa. Both of us go. We try to find a place to stay, which was like quite close to the beach, but not on the beach because places on the beach are
much more expensive.
Yeah. So we found a place, and then we were just like going around. And we really liked the place, so we are like, okay, why don't we extend our stay by a little bit? It fits our budget, and we did that, and we were just like lazing on the beach. We met like some incredible people from all over the world. Because what happens in Goa is, though there were a lot of people around, just because you are from here, you are always in a group. You don't open yourself up to interacting with strangers, or you're not in that zone because Goa is still home ground for you. But there we were traveling, we were completely open to like speak to strangers, and of course be careful, like trust your instinct. But I don't know how to put it, but it really opened my mind to so much. Like I met like solo women travelers, and I'm like, wow, women do this solo all the time. Like they've traveled half the world solo, and like, what am I doing?
So
with
that basically encouraged you.
Yes.
And you just felt it was freedom, of course. From what you're saying, you get that sense that there was a lot of freedom for you that you experienced. Okay, Kevin, what about you? How did you start with your journey of traveling?
So basically the travel bug was always there in me since college. How she said, we wanted to travel but we did not have that much budget. So I think I got my first bike when I was in college, and I bunked college a lot to travel like nearby places like Maharashtra or Karnataka. After that, even when I was working in Pune, I think there were a lot of treks and waterfalls happening around. So I think these small things were always a part of my life. And later on, you know, my friends came to me and they're like, you're visiting these places, and why don't you show us how, you know, what you're doing, which places you're visiting? And that's when it hit me that I should actually document it. And the first thing, before Instagram also, I did a YouTube video. I used to do vlogs, and then it came to Instagram. So that's something that was always there in me, and just now it's that I'm documenting it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, you first started with the traveling, and then, like you said, that it was your friends who, you know, said to you, why don't you document and give us a few tips?
Right.
And that's how
so
the
that's
travel
how it
blogging
started with YouTube, and then it came to Instagram.
Wow. So today you all both have, I think, quite a big following, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So good, congratulations on that. Now, Flexcia, what do you like, Flexcia, about traveling? You've been to many places, both of you all have been to so many places, but what is it, what is that thing that makes you say, okay, let's pack up, let's go out somewhere? What do you love about traveling?
Of course, it's the experiences that it brings to the table, and it also expands your horizons so much. Something that I think being in one place you wouldn't really experience, and wouldn't really open yourself to experience. You know, as I said before also, when you're with your core circle, when you're always surrounded with your people, you know, you don't really go out there. And you know, how often would you just walk up to a cafe in Goa and, you know, strike a conversation with somebody, right?
Right.
Unless you're by yourself, okay, then you will. But if you're in a group, you're always with, you know, within your core circle. But when you're out there traveling, firstly, there are no inhibitions. There's, you're not feeling conscious. You know, no one knows you there. It's just like, you know, you and nature, or, you know,
wherever you are, whichever place you are
at.
at.
The place. Of course,
Yep.
you pick places basis that, and
Yes.
every trip is very different, and every trip has you know, a different kind of experiences attached to it. I do a bit of touristy commercial travel as well, because, you know, I also believe that, okay, this place is touristy and this place is commercial because it has something, right? That's the reason everyone wants to go there. I do that as well, but of course it's not as fulfilling as going to like
Offbeat places.
or offbeat place, because I mean, something as simple as, you know, interacting with the locals and understanding the local culture, for example. Of course, you read, you watch documentaries, you I mean, there are many ways of learning it, but, you know, getting it first hand from a local, or being a part of a local festival in you know, that setting, actually witnessing it, I mean, there's nothing like it. Yeah, you can watch as many videos as you want and, you know, try to understand how it feels, but when you're actually there, you know, I've even been in places where I don't really understand the language. They don't understand my language. They don't know English. Especially in South India, some of like the super remote places, they don't understand Hindi or English, and they don't care. And you know, for me, it's very difficult to pick up a South Indian language. Like, I knew basic words, but I couldn't even like frame a sentence, or I wouldn't understand. But just living there, and you know, the people, they might not be like really well off, but they are very welcoming. Like, I've stayed with local people, I've stayed in their house, you know, like they would cook for us on the chula and like serve us, and it was, I don't know, it was like a different experience.
Very, something very unique. And every place, as every individual is unique, and every place, I'm sure, is unique, and the experiences therefore must be unique. Kevin, what about you? What do you like about traveling?
So basically, I think travel as a part of my life has helped me grow a lot. For example, you know, when we are in our shell, we think this is the world, but you know, there is a big world outside there, and I think travel helps us explore that part of it. It helps us explore the qualities that we have that we might not know about. For example, before traveling I was very shy, very introvert kind, but after traveling I think I've been more open, I've been more vocal about my thoughts or meeting up with people. For example, the recent trip I did to Ladakh, I actually went and engaged with the last Aryan tribe of India, which is very rare.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I don't know what they speak, they don't know what I speak, but meeting them, being there, understanding their culture, I think this is something that travel teaches you. It helps you grow as an individual, and that's something I think the biggest benefit of travel.
Right. Yeah. So you said that you were an introvert, but with travel it has not only expanded your experience, your views of the world, but also you have expanded your friend circle, I'm sure.
Yes.
The networking, and you yourself, you have realized the potential that you have.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell me, what according to you, Kevin, are some of the skills that you need, basic skills, or some of the qualities that you need to be a traveler? What would you, just a few of them, which you think are very necessary?
Okay, so I think the first key is communication. I think if you know to talk, you can be anywhere in the world. So it not necessarily be the language, but how you communicate with them. That's what matters. I think that's what has helped me like travel places. And secondly, planning well. Like if you're going anywhere, the key is to plan, to do a lot of research, because what you see on Instagram might not exactly be the same, right?
Right.
So it's very important to do your part of it, to do the research and then go. I think that's more than enough, and that's something that has helped me. So yeah.
So the research, of course, and you said communication,
right,
is important. So you earlier you said that you were an introvert.
True.
But your traveling has made you an extrovert. So when you first initially started, you were not, from what you have said, you were not a great communicator.
Correct.
And you weren't, I mean, in the sense that you weren't speaking too much to people. So how can you tell us one episode? Can you think about something?
So I think when all of us as humans are put outside our comfort zone, we somewhat take that step, we take the first baby step, and I think that helps us grow in the long run. So I was very hesitant to go and stay in hostels because I have to speak to people. And it was like a phobia to me, like I have to go and speak to someone. So I say at that point there were no rooms available. The only thing was hostel when I went to Kerala back then.
So the dormitories, you're talking about the dormitories, right?
And that's when I met people. People came and spoke to me, and that's when I understood that there are people out there who are with the same mindset and whom with you can connect with. So I think that opened the doorway of me to communicate with others, and that's where it started.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Flexcia, besides the communication and the planning that Kevin has spoken about, what are the other qualities or skills you think, or the prerequisites of travel or a traveler?
I think a major thing which I feel that has at least worked for me is having the right instinct, like to choose, to decide, to make that decision at that point. Whether I think, is this the right thing to do, should I go in this direction or what, because see, you are completely out of your comfort zone, and this especially if you're traveling solo, right? Of course you have a plan, you have to do something, but plans always don't work out. There are times you just need to maybe change your route or change your itinerary, maybe because of weather or anything
can happen.
It could be like a major festive season in one part of town, and you can't really be there, so you need to change. So I mean, how do you decide, or what do I do next? Something as simple as you book a flight, or you book a train, you book your commute to a place which is supposed to reach there in the daytime, and you generally tend to feel very comfortable in the day.
Obviously.
But the moment it reaches in the night, what do you do? How do you deal with it? It happened to me, and earlier I used to panic a little, but right now I think at this point I really trust my instincts, and touch wood, I've not really gotten into trouble. Of course I be safe. There are days when I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do this, I'm just going to stay in, or okay, I'm not going to stay in this hotel, though I've booked it, I will just go and find a different place because I don't feel safe. It's just
Safety.
that voice inside you. So instinct is a major part. Secondly, I think researching a little bit and understanding the nuances and the culture of the place. Something as simple as, at least as a woman, I feel, if you want to feel comfortable in a certain place, you need to firstly be very respectful towards the culture, and secondly, something as simple as dressing, for example. If you're in a particular place, like, if I'm in Goa, I will wear like whatever, a tropical beach vacation, what I would wear. But the same thing, if I'm maybe going to a more cultural experience, even if it's within a place like Goa, for example, if you're going for a more heritage or cultural experience, you dress up appropriately, because then you get warmth from the people, because they understand that,
you're showing respect to,
yes, because
to them.
A lot of Indian, at least a lot of places in India actually, they are not very, very, some of them are quite conservative, they are not so open-minded. So, I think, you can't go out there and be like, no, you need to accept me the way I am. You are there to experience that place, so, why not blend in and experience it the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
Something, and even in terms of maybe food, just keeping an open mind. I think not having expectations. You might not like it, but why not try it if you're there, right? I go with that intention, and I've actually found really interesting things to do because I've gone with no, expectations or no intentions. Like, just keep an open mind and, tell yourself that be open to experiences. You don't know what tomorrow might have in store. That's the thing about travel.
So to put it together, what Kevin and Flexcia have said is that you need to plan, you need to do a research. Flexcia says that you need to be respectful, which is so true, not just when you're traveling. I think that holds true in life as well in general, that you need to respect people, their culture, because that shows that you care, it shows that you are ready to adjust as well, and go with no expectations, says Flexcia, because when you go with certain expectations and you set certain boundaries and say, this is it and this is what I'm going to like and this is what I'm not going to like, your experiences are not as good as they should be.
They're limited.
Very limited.
You limit yourself.
Right? Which are some of the states you've been to, or have you been to all, Flexcia?
No, I haven't. I haven't been to all. India is such a big country.
It is.
If you really want to experience it, you really need a lot of time to spend in each place. Yeah, you can't really. And again, I'm not like a bucket list traveler where I'll go to the destination for 2 days and just to tick it off my list. I would rather go there and stay there for a longer time.
And experience.
Yes. And India is so diverse that even within the same state, every few kilometers, everything changes, right from the terrain and the geography to culture to people. Everything changes. So even to just explore one state well, it's quite something.
Listening to Flexia's speech just now reminds me how diverse Goa is itself. Like the north of Goa and the south of Goa, east as west, is so different. Not only in terms of the food, but even the language, because you can very distinctly, differentiate between Shashtriya and a Bades Konkani.
Right.
So yes, there was a lot of diversity within a small state like Goa. So I can only imagine what it must be across India. Kevin, how many states of India have you done?
I think around 15 to 16 states.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think what I do is whenever I visit any place, I prefer spending more time over there. I just don't want to hurry it,
Right,
that's when you not just travel the place, you understand the people, you understand their culture, the food, the lifestyle, and I think that is something very important as a traveler that will help you grow. So when I went to Himachal, I was there for 15 days and I think Flexcia helped me a lot with the planning, and I stayed at a certain place for 2-3 days, and that's how I could soak in the place, the people, the culture, and that's something that matters when you travel.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, how to, when you start, suppose you had decided about Himachal.
Yes.
Right? Is it how do you plan? Does something, you've chalked out a sort of an itinerary and say, this year I'm going to do these 2 places, next year, so on and so forth. And how, from once you decided which place you're going to, how do you go about with the rest of the planning? Can you just take us through it?
Yeah, so for example, if I plan to go to Kashmir, okay, so what I do is I do a lot of research, because as I mentioned earlier, if what you see on the internet might not really be there.
True.
Right,
True.
so it's very important to do your research on your behalf and then go. So I do a lot of research. I check which are the most offbeat places, other than the regular places.
Right.
I definitely will visit the regular places, but also the offbeat places. And then I get in touch with people from there, the locals, because they are the ones who will give you a reality check, like what is the status right now with this particular place. And that's how I make a plan. I plan my budget and then I set off on the trip. So I think research is very important, and that's what I do, and then I put in place my itinerary, the budget, and then move forward.
But research, like Flexcia also said, is important. But what really stood out just now when you were speaking is that connection with the locals.
Yes.
This is something different. This is not something that I've heard before, in the sense that going out and reaching out to the locals and just finding out, hey, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Is it a good time? Do you think I'll get good rates for the hotel? Where should I stay? So connecting with the locals, firstly, is you're getting inside information, and secondly, you are also making friends where you
Yes.
can go and meet, whom you can go and meet later.
True, because when I did my trip to Kashmir, I got in touch with the local, and out of my whole itinerary, one of the days he told me, you come to my place, stay with us, experience, and we got to experience the Kashmiri life, how they live, what they eat, what they
That
do,
is so amazing.
the stories, and
That is so
not
amazing.
every Kashmir trip is like that. So
Correct.
this is what I live for, and this is
Correct.
what I want to make travel all about.
Some unique experiences. And it is so true, unless you live with the locals and you see how they live, what they eat, then only then will you learn about their culture and about the people. So Flexcia, how many states have you been to?
I don't know, maybe 10 to 12, which I've
Okay.
explored properly, like being around,
Right,
checking out
right.
the place. But otherwise, it's mostly transit. You're just there for
Right.
a few days. And
So if I were to ask you, name 3 top states which you would recommend to our viewers, because I'm sure everybody is waiting to hear from both of them, which are the states that they should, they have been to and they've enjoyed the most?
Personally, the states I have explored, spent quite some time in, and sort of really felt and understood and experienced well. Top on my list is Kerala, because I've done like 10 trips to Kerala over
Wow.
years, and it's right from going there on a student budget to a volunteer experience at a NGO for blind people. To going there as a tourist. I've taken my parents, so that was like a super touristy trip. To visiting my friend's place and staying at local homes and sort of experiencing their local lives. I've experienced different parts of Kerala, and for me, I think the top highlight over there is the food. Like Kerala food, personally, I find it really interesting, and a lot of people, when you say South Indian food, you just sort of, it's such a vast and diverse, spectrum. People just call it South Indian food and that is it. But when you actually eat proper local food at local places, again, I've tried to go to, these toddy shops. They are like Goan tavels, something like that. They have the concept of toddy shops. Of course, they serve toddy and food along with it.
Okay.
And the food is like locally made, sometimes made on chula, and made in like those big vessels, and then they serve you. There'll just be no menu card, of course, just limited items every day,
Right.
and you get to experience all of it. So Kerala, for me, I think is the top, and this is also family friendly, kid friendly, and also it has the best of both worlds. They have like the mountains, which is Wayanad or Munnar and stuff like that. Then they have the more cultural heritage parts, which are maybe the city, something like Kochi or Fort Kochi, Calicut. And then even on the coast, they have the backwaters.
Yes.
Something like a Munro Island, or if you want to be more safe and more go to a slightly more commercial pace, and even LP for that matter. It's a completely different experience, though it's within the same state. If you're just planning a trip to Kerala, you get to experience different things within the same state.
Right.
And if someone from Goa is planning to travel, I mean, you can take a flight, of course, to Kochi or Kannur or whatever, but you can just take a overnight train, and I think you'll reach Kerala by tomorrow morning if you
Right.
get on the train today
Tonight,
evening.
okay.
So it's so convenient, you know. So even if you're planning a group trip maybe with your friends, it's completely solo friendly as well, because I've traveled Kerala solo as well. So you can go there solo, you can go there with your friends, you can go there with your family. There's just a lot to do.
So besides Kerala, which
Besides Kerala, I think my second top would be Himachal.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when I was really young, I wanted to go to Himachal because, you know, it's the mountains, and in Goa you don't really have
Yes,
the mountains.
yes.
You know, you want to go. So Himachal, also I've traveled solo in Himachal once, which was a good 16 days, and then later on I went on a group trip to Spiti, which is also in the same region. So Himachal, of course, it's only mountains, but a lot of it is mountains, but of course they have plains as well, and there's again different regions of Himachal will expose you to slightly different what do you call it, experiences. Something like I did paragliding in Bir, and Bir, of course, Billing is known for it, but when I was living in Bir, I spent like 5 days there. Because I had a lot of spare time, I was just walking around, and I realized that Bir had so much of this whole Tibetan settlement there.
Okay.
Like most people think it's only Dharamshala,
Yes.
because that's the popular one. in
yes,
Siddharth.
yes, that's what
But
we normally hear about.
Yes, but Bir also has so much of Tibetan settlement.
Okay.
And I realized that it's not commercial, it's not touristy. So even if you're visiting a monastery, for example, it's completely empty. You know, you just get to sit there and really meditate and really soak in the vibe. And there were a lot of treks that I could do which were not again commercial, because I spent some time in Manali as well, but I realized that there were a lot of people, and you know, places tended to get crowded. So even if you're like, oh, I think this waterfall is quite remote, let me go there, but there would still be people. But when I spent time in Bir, for example, there were people, but it was way lesser. Then thirdly, in terms of like cafes or just going out to like more social places, you just end up meeting a lot of people, because everyone who comes to Bir, for example, are coming to slow down. No one's in a hurry, no one's rushing. So you know, you have those experiences. And then if you go to a place like Spiti Valley, I did a separate trip to go to Spiti Valley. That was like a really high intensity, I don't know, adventure centric trip. You know, I was river crossing, I was driving on like some really tough terrains, we were crossing like mountains, and it was like a mad, completely adventurous experience within the same state. And then there was a more low key, and then I went to a town called Banjar. I spent like 4-5 days there. So over there we went on a hike, and we reached the top of the mountain. It is on top, they had like a sheep grazing area sort of thing, and towards the end we could hear some chanting. So we go there, and we just waited like far away, and we were just like trying to figure what's happening. We realized it's some religious festival, and then I realized it's not religious, it's cultural. So people, regardless of what religion they are a part of, they are a part of it because they worship nature, and they were having some sort of ritual that they were doing, which has been, of course, happening for the past many years. And they welcomed us to come and have lunch with them. So you know, we had like a proper local lunch with the people. And thankfully Himachal, most people speak Hindi, they understand Hindi, so we could interact with them. So see, within the same state I've had
there's so many different
multiple
experiences. Yes.
But if you just want like a good larger than life cultural experience, Rajasthan would be the place, because there's so much of like in terms of monuments, and you know, like because a lot of princely states are still live. There are like the royal families who still live there, and you know, something like that.
Forts and palaces.
Exactly, you
basically.
wouldn't experience it in other parts of India. So if you want something like that, maybe you can.
So to you know, put it all together, what she says is what Flexcia recommends is Kerala, Rajasthan, and of course Himachal Pradesh. Kevin, coming to you.
Yeah.
Have you traveled outside India?
Yes, I have traveled outside India. A little lesser than how much I've traveled in India, but I did travel.
Which are the
outside.
places you've been to?
I've been to Vietnam, I've been to Thailand, I've been to Dubai.
And if I were to ask you one, which was your best trip abroad?
Vietnam was my most favorite trip because I spent a lot of time there, it was less commercial. I did more like a local trip. I met the locals. I also took up a cooking class and things like that. I think this is what I love doing while I travel, and that's why I would say.
Could you just explain the cooking? What exactly?
Yeah, so
was
we
that?
went on a cruise, on the Halong Bay cruise, and it's an overnight cruise, and they have different activities that you can do, like kayaking, boating, swimming, and cooking class is one of them. So they taught us how to make the Vietnamese rolls, and I still do it at home. So I brought back a big experience.
But
you
I know when you travel, there's so much
True.
to do.
True.
So there's so much more that we have to speak with Flexcia and with Kevin, but we'll take a break. Please don't go away. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back to the Now in Times Talk from the Heart. We are in conversation with Flexcia D'Souza and Kevin Pinto. They are travelers, they are travel bloggers, and they have been sharing such interesting tips with us. They're telling us about the places that you must visit. So last we spoke, Kevin, you said that you have gone outside the country.
Yes.
And you've just been to a few places. You went to Vietnam, which was your according to you, the best place
True.
that you've been. What about you, Flexcia? Have you traveled outside the country?
Yes, not as much as I would like to, but I have visited a few places, mostly within Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Bhutan and Nepal.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think this
Which was your favorite?
my favorite was Bhutan because it was so different, though it's like literally the neighbor country. It's like the same, it's a land border, but it was so different. Firstly, the experience of traveling. I did not fly into Bhutan. I did fly out of Bhutan, but while going to Bhutan, I flew to Bagdogra airport, which is in India, and then I crossed the border by a road. And then I did like a 7-day road trip across Bhutan. I couldn't cover a lot of it in 7 days, but the permit I was getting was just for 7 days. So I tried to cover as much as possible, which was like 3 or 4 cities. Also, it's a kingdom, right? It's not a democracy. So everything was so different, and it's the world's happiest country. And I mean, I did.
So
not
were you
believe-
happy when you were there?
I was definitely, but just seeing how happy people were, because everyone was treated so well. There was so much of social etiquette that I saw, like no one honks on the road. Like imagine roads with no honking, no traffic jams because everyone follows traffic rules.
I'm just thinking, how would it be if Goa was like that?
And it's such a stark difference. So the border, you just cross it, you can cross it by foot. The India part of it is so chaotic and so crowded and so noisy. And then you cross into the Bhutan part of it, and it is so
Peaceful.
peaceful and so different. That even the quality of air, because I mean the population is lesser, people are very mindful about how they live, their lifestyle choices. So everything is very, very different. So it was very contrasting for me in that sense. Yes.
Right. I'm sure the viewers agree with me. There are many out there who would love to travel. However, there are so many restraints, and the first restraint is, of course, besides time, is money, is finance. So how, Kevin, if suppose I want to go to Vietnam,
Okay.
I want to go outside the country, but I am on a budget. So how do I plan a budget trip?
So basically, I think you need to. What I personally do is when I want to do like a budget trip, I make a note of where I actually need to spend and where I don't. For example, I'm on my accommodation, I will spend lesser because I'm just coming to my room to sleep, right?
Right.
So I wouldn't need a fancy hotel, but I would rather spend that money on experience. It's way cheaper than your accommodation and you're getting something out of it, right? So very important is where you spend your money. Secondly is doing your research. Like you wouldn't want to visit a place where you'll end up spending a lot. You reach there and then you realize there's no proper mode of transport. You need to spend a bomb on cabs and taxis, and that's not really in your budget. So you would travel to places where commuting is easier, commuting is cheaper. So these are some of the small tips that you need to keep in mind. And I think even saving 100 rupees or 200 rupees, overall sum, you'll save a lot. So these are some of the tips.
So basically prioritize what's important.
Correct.
And if you want to spend more on your lodgings, your accommodation, the food or the experiences, like maybe kayaking or bungee jumping or whatever it is. So it's up to you, and each of us is different. We are unique, obviously, so our choices will be different. But what Kevin says is that prioritization is important, and of course research, which he has been, and even Flexcia has been highlighting a lot, that research, and today with all the different apps with internet at our fingertips, I think it is not difficult. Flexcia, how would you plan your trip?
So I think if I'm looking at budget, the first major spending is flights. I think that's the biggest expense in a travel. So I'm very smart with how I book my flights. Firstly, I'll make sure that I'm maybe going to a place, I first thing I check is flights, because
Correct.
you can really save up on flights if you go there in maybe a different month. So I avoid peak season. So I will either go just before season opening or just after season closing, and I make sure I check it on this app called Skyscanner. This is my secret. I check a app.
Okay,
called
she's sharing a secret. So she said it very softly. So I'm going to ask her to repeat
Skyscanner.
louder. There
So
she is.
Skyscanner is
She's
the
saying
app I use.
Skyscanner.
So
Okay.
what that app does is shows me the flight price on 5 or 10 different booking platforms. So I get to choose which platform I eventually book it from, but at least I can sort of compare my pricing, and I will go with the cheapest. Secondly, credit cards, you get discounts, cashbacks, all of that. So if you're using a credit
Okay.
card, so you save up on flights, and honestly, it goes up to quite
A bit traveling by
yes,
flight.
quite a bit of budget that you save up there. Secondly, I plan my days according to the budget I have. For example, if you're doing a 2-week trip, your flight will again be a major expense, but if you're doing a 2-week trip, you roughly need to know how much you need to spend in that particular place.
Correct.
Within India, mostly it's possible to travel for a longer time, but if you're doing international, as of now, honestly, I've only traveled to places where the currency is sort of equivalent to India, or at least somewhere close.
Right.
And Vietnam is honestly the cheapest place I've been to, budget wise, because everything, right from food to accommodation to everything, was so cheap, and we could really experience some things in an entirely different, without really worrying about money, because for the first time, I felt like Indian currency was slightly stronger in terms of what you're actually spending. Same with
That's
Nepal.
interesting. That's interesting.
Even Nepal and Bhutan, the currency is the same. Thailand, people say it's cheaper, but it's not actually cheap, because it's still like 2.5 the currency. And in terms of places also, accommodation and stuff, if you want, you can find places like even for accommodations, we played it very smart. How I do it is, if I'm doing, for example, a longer trip, like a 2-week trip, my Thailand trip was 2-week, you do not want to always stay in hostels, after a point it just gets to you. You still want your space. So
And you need a little bit of luxury. You need to
Yes,
sometimes
yes.
just, pamper yourself, really.
So then I sort of split it out. So maybe 2 to 3 days I'll stay in a hostel, or like a more budget hotel or a boutique hotel, and then one or 2 nights then I'll splurge. I'll stay at like a better property, and on that day I make sure that I'm spending more time in the hotel and not going out, and sort of relaxing, doing laundry, like sort of chilling on that day. And then again, when I'm like in a new place, I'll spend some time in like a budget hotel. So eventually when you calculate your budget of stay for the whole, it'll come the same, because then you've sort of split your budget into
So you're basically, what Flexcia is saying is you need to balance it out.
Correct.
Like the day she goes to the hotel and she spends a lot on that hotel room, what she does is she spends that kind of time, more time in the hotel, and utilizes the amenities, the facilities of the hotel. But when she is out, she is more out there, she is enjoying the outdoors and the things that are there. Kevin, besides flying, within India, what would you recommend? Now, my budget is really tight, and if I spend on flying, that's taking a large chunk of
Correct.
my budget out, right? What would you say besides flying? What would you recommend?
I think other than flying, if the place is really accessible and you don't really need to fly over there, you can simply catch a train. It's
Right.
way cheaper than flight. And another thing, that concept that people don't really know or not really aware about, is something called couch surfing.
All right.
So that's where there's an app for that. You get in touch with people who are ready to offer you a stay or something like that. In return, you help them out. So for example, we did this in one of the places where a guy, he had a cafe and he needed someone to help him out in that particular week.
That's
right?
interesting.
So they are offering you a stay and you help them out in whatever they need. So I think you're saving a lot over there.
So they allow you to stay,
Yes.
but you have to help them for a few hours of the day, or is it a longer period?
So it depends on their requirement. It's like a day or maybe just half a day or few hours. So it's something that people are not really aware of, and that's like the biggest saver that I think I've used in some of my trips, which is couch surfing.
Right. So Flexcia as well as Kevin have both given us huge, very, very useful tips. One is the portal where you can Sky Scanner, and Kevin speaks about couch.
That's for stay. Couch
For couch surfing is for the stay. So travel as well as your accommodation, these tips, I don't think you will get it on the internet. So all those who are watching, please share it even with your family, friends and everyone around, so we all can become better travelers and we'll travel more. Right now, besides the people, besides the traveling, there are also other things that you need to be careful about. Certain things like you need to carry with you, like your travel is taken care of, your accommodation is taken care of. What if you're going to certain like remote places and you're not very sure what is going to be available and what's not available? So if you are going to a place that maybe there are many things not available, what are some of the basics besides the toiletries that you will carry with you? What are the other things that you need to have with you?
I think what I always have with me in my bag is three things. One is the toiletry that you mentioned.
Right.
Secondly is first aid, because when I travel to places like Spiti or Ladakh, which are very remote, and I'm not sure if I'll get medication if I fall ill or something like that.
Right.
And thirdly is as a creator, I would want to carry a power backup for my gadgets, because when I visited Ladakh recently, I stayed 3 days without electricity.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I think based on the place, you will carry your essentials with you.
Okay. What about you? What are the three things that you would?
Something very similar, and in addition to that, also maybe some food, like some dry fruits or something, because you don't know which areas you're going to, and especially if it's a road trip. I mean, something like the mountains, it's mostly a road trip. You don't know where you're stopping, what the weather has in store for you, or will you even be able, because when I did Spiti, for example, it suddenly started raining. There was like a thunderstorm we were caught in, like the whole evening. You need some snacks, you need like water to be with you at all times, which most of the times you take it for granted because you think, oh, I can just pick it up, but it can be so essential, especially if you get like stranded or if you're stuck or something,
or you're
like
in
that.
a remote place.
Yes. And also I always pack for different weathers, because I think in India especially, you cannot predict weather. Like you think it's summer and it's pouring and it gets really cold, or you think, oh, it's
it's going to be raining.
Yes, and suddenly it's so sunny also. So it's so essential to like pack for different weather. So right now, even if I'm going to like a summer destination, I'll still carry at least one pair of like warm clothes. And if I'm doing like winter, I will still carry like some lighter clothes which I can use, because you can get very uncomfortable when you're traveling
Obviously.
if you're not dressed correctly. And thirdly, the right pair of footwear. Again, like either a pair of sports shoes or trekking shoes, because literally everywhere we go, I think we tend to find a hike or a trek or something to do. We think, oh, this is a beach town, we won't find anything, but we eventually end up finding it. So we always, at least I always keep like a proper pair of shoes which I can use, and sometimes style wise it's something which I can probably even use in the the city. You know, it will go on any outfit, something like just sneakers maybe, but if I'm going in the mountains, I keep like a proper pair of waterproof trekking shoes, which I keep, and the slippers, of course, because you need it for everything.
Kevin, do you do any road trips on your, in your car or a bike? Have you done?
Yes, I think I did a first solo trip on my bike back in 2020.
Which bike? What bike did you
I
have?
have a Royal Enfield.
Okay.
And that's when, my craze for biking started, and I did a solo trip to Coorg. From Goa to Coorg, I rode all the way, and my bike was new. I still had those doubts, like, should I do it or no? But you need to take that leap of faith, and that's when you're going to begin something. Because if you keep thinking, procrastinating, you're just going to be there. You have to take that leap of faith. And I think when I did my biking trip, I made sure I carried like the very handy equipment for my bike, like my clutch cable or brake cable, because you don't know, you're alone, right? And if it's available or not. And the second thing, I carry my water bottle everywhere. First of all, I don't want to purchase plastic bottles. It's more like pollutes the environment. I carry my own water bottle. Wherever I get a chance to refill it, I refill it. So these are additionally some of the things that I carry.
Okay, both of you all have given me some of the states that you all are your favorite. Now, from all the states that you all have been to, from all the different type of cuisines that you all have tried, Kevin, which is that one dish that comes to mind when I say, just name me one of your favorite dishes that you've had throughout your journeys, your trips?
I think the most favorite one is lal mas in Rajasthan. I mean, that with the roti they give is... I'm drooling right now as I talk.
Listening to you, I'm thinking, my goodness, I hope, I'm going to check Zomato and Swiggy and check if there's any lal mas anywhere. I know I will not get the same thing, but lal mas. What about you, Flexcia?
I think for me it's Kerala food, and my favorite dish would be the curry meen polichada. Curry meen is like
a fish?
Goan karundor, so that's they call it curry meen, and it's stuffed in banana leaf, and it's like really flavorful. So it's masala and they sort of put it in banana leaf and then they steam it. It's yum, and you can have it with whatever. I love to have it with appam. So appam and curry meen polichada, and also like pepper fry that they make it with seafood, they make it with meat, and you get it for breakfast, lunch or dinner. You can eat it all day. It's pepper fry, more like a Goan chili fry elevated version, which is more flavorful, not spicy, not pungent, but very, very flavorful.
Okay, right. You all have been traveling now for a few years. What would you say, I'm not talking about a place, what is one of your favorites? I mean, it's difficult to choose when you are a traveler. Which is your favorite travel experience? Let's start with you, Kevin.
Yes. So for me, it was my Kedarkantha trek, which is in Uttarakhand. So it's a 5-day trek. It's a winter trek. 3 days you walk uphill and 2 days you walk downhill. And when we went there, you need to carry your luggage and walk up that mountain at 13,500 feet.
Gosh, that sounds like torture.
And it's cold. It's cold. Right. So as up, you'll find snow, and we stay in tents. You sleep in sleeping bags. There are no proper washrooms. There's no water because everything is frozen. And on the last day, you walk to the summit to watch the sunrise at 3 a.m. in the morning. You have very less oxygen.
At 3 in the morning?
Yes, and minus 16 degrees temperature. I think this trip, what it taught me the most is to be grateful. You don't have proper food. Your parents are not around. Your friends are not around. You're alone. And that's when you realize how important this is. When you can't breathe, you realize how important this life is, And that's when you become even more grateful. I think the Kedarkantha trek has taught me this, and I urge to everyone also that this is once in a lifetime experience that everyone should take.
What about you, Flexcia? Which has been your favorite travel experience?
There have been many, but my most favorite, I think, is my solo travel on my motorcycle. I think as someone who quite recently started riding seriously, for me it's very special because I wanted to do it like pretty much all my life. And a week after I got my motorcycle, I was riding before that, but after I got my own motorcycle, like literally a week after that, I left Goa and I was on a trip to Karnataka. and I had visited a lot of these places, maybe backpacking or on a road trip in a car or something like that. So for me, going there by myself on my own motorcycle was really, I don't know, it was very empowering from within, and it really opened my mind to different possibilities. So I did the whole trip from Goa to Mangalore, then I went to Coorg, I went to Mysore, I went to Bangalore, and I came back via Hubli from Anmod Ghat. And then within, like, in less than a month, I was like, okay, I think I should do a little more of this before the rains. So I decided to go towards Maharashtra. So I did like the Amboli Ghat, Kolhapur, Pune, Lonavala, and then I was back from Rajapur, Kudal, and the coastal highway. So one was like a 6-day trip, one was a 5-day trip, and I camped, and I did all of that as well.
So how many hours do you guys sit on your on the bikes, and till you feel, oh my God, I need to stretch my hands and legs? I've been sitting, and it must be tiring, exhausting, in fact.
Yeah, so I just plan it and time it accordingly. You approximately know how long you will take to get to a place.
Yeah.
So you plan like your stops accordingly. And for me also, because I'm a solo woman traveler, I need to be very careful about where I stop.
Yes.
So I need to be very smart about the stops I take.
Absolutely.
Also, because when I'm wearing a helmet, I wear proper gear. I wear like full proper gear, head to toe. Everything is covered with like multiple layers, so nobody knows I'm a girl. People think it's a man, but the moment I take it off, people realize it's a girl, and I don't know, behavior changes. So I
Obviously,
need to be very careful. So how I do it is, if I'm doing maybe 400-500 kilometers in a day, I will try to take a stop. The first stop is always maybe after 200 kilometers, because you want to cover the most when you're fresh. The most distance when you're fresh. Of course, if you feel thirsty, you stop. I have a hydration pack on my bag, and it has like a
straw that comes.
So you just have water from this thing, but I try to stop maybe after like 150-200 kilometers, because you're very fresh when you start out. So then you stretch, and then maybe you stop every 100-150 kilometers. You take your lunch stop, you plan where you're doing it, and if there's an experience on the way that you want to stop and sort of witness, you do that. But I think I try to start my journey early in the morning and try to end it by sunset. How much of a kilometers it is.
What about you, Kevin? Do you also do 200 kilometers approximately?
So to be frank, I do it at my comfort. So sometimes it's 100, sometimes it's 200. So I'll tell you why, because it's a very important to take breaks at your convenience. Again, this is not a race, it's not a competition, right? You're going to enjoy, to rewind, to relax. So I think whenever I feel tired, I take a break, I drink water, I get rehydrated, and then I move. But I prefer riding during the day. I avoid the nights because it's again risky if you break down or anything, or just stay stranded. So ride during the day, leave early, as Flexcia said, and take as many stops as you want, as long as you're comfortable.
Right. You said that your Kedar Kant trip taught you the biggest lesson that Kevin said that he learned was gratefulness, and that's simply amazing. And the way he's put it as well, that you realize what it is, how grateful we should be that we are alive. And I'm sure we are all blessed in different ways. Flexcia, what would you say traveling has taught you? What has that been, that one biggest lesson you've learned?
Kindness and hope.
Hope.
Yes, kindness, because I think living in Goa, I've never really witnessed the kind of kindness I've experienced from different people whilst traveling. I mean, it's insane, and now I feel like it's my time to give back. So anytime there are people who are coming to Goa, if they reach out to me, I try to help everyone as much as possible. Of course, you can't do everything, but as much as possible, because people have been really kind, really warm, really welcoming to me. I've never really had a bad experience, like a very bad experience whilst traveling. Always had good experiences. So it's sort of that faith in humanity. It's sort of, I believe in it, because people have treated me so well,
and you want to give back,
and I want to give back.
So this is like a chain that you guys everyone starts with a chain.
Yes, not to the same person. And secondly, hope, because I believe that when you're really hopeful and you really believe in something, it actually comes true. It's magical. You don't really know how it happens, but that hope and that belief, when you have it, it changes everything.
So travel has changed both of you?
Definitely.
A
And as
lot.
Flexcia mentioned about hope, the same with respect to Kedarkanta. You know, many people told me, see, you wouldn't be able to do it and things like that. But you know, that hope was there. I trust myself, and that hope took me till the summit.
Yes, because you said minus 16
Yes.
degrees, 3 a.m. you have to wake up.
Right.
That is a lot. That is a lot. Just the thought of it is tiring. So imagine actually doing something like that and trekking so much. You know, our topic was travel is learning. Not only is travel learning, but also talking about travel has taught me, and I'm sure all our viewers, you have learnt a lot. Flexcia and Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your tips, your experiences, and the ideas that you have. And to all our viewers, thank you for your time, for your patience, and for your attention. This is to all of y'all. Please travel more. There's so much to learn. You are going to learn not just about places and people and culture, but I think life experiences as well. So until next time, take care. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.